Have you ever stood in the ruins of a relationship wondering why the person you loved, the one you gave your heart to, seemed determined to break you? Have you ever felt drained, diminished, questioning your worth, asking God, why did you allow this to happen? If you have, then hear me now. This was not a punishment. This was preparation. You were never meant to be destroyed. You were meant to be refined. C.S. Lewis once said, hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. The pain you endured was not meaningless. The betrayal you suffered was not wasted. God was never absent in your suffering. He was shaping you, molding you, stripping away what did not belong so that you could rise stronger than ever before. So often when we face heartbreak, we assume it is because we were not enough. We think, if only I had been more patient, more understanding, more loving. But the truth is, it was never about you not being enough. It was about them never being capable of receiving what you had to give. The Bible tells us in 1 Peter 1:7, these trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold. Like gold, you have been through fire, not to be burned, but to be refined. And now you shine. In this video, we will uncover 5 ways God acts when a narcissist tries to destroy you. You will see why you were placed in this storm, not to break, but to be transformed. And when you understand the purpose behind your pain, you will no longer look back with regret. You will look back with gratitude. If you have walked through a toxic relationship but emerged stronger, comment below, I am stronger than ever. Let us stand together in faith and victory. Stay with me. By the end of this, you will see that what was meant to harm you, God has used to set you free. So why did God allow you to go through this pain? Was it because He abandoned you? Because He wanted to punish you? No, it was because He knew you were strong enough to endure it. The greatest transformations happen in the fire. Gold in its raw form does not glisten with brilliance. It is buried deep in the earth, covered in impurities, and must pass through intense heat to become something precious. And just like gold, you were never meant to remain as you were. C.S. Lewis once wrote, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pain. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world. What if your suffering was never about breaking you, but awakening you? The Bible is not a book of easy lives. It is a book of battles, betrayals, suffering, and, ultimately, redemption. Time and time again, God allows His people to go through trials, not to destroy them, but to refine them, to prepare them for a greater purpose. Look at Job. Imagine losing everything you hold dear, your home, your wealth, your health, and worst of all, your children, all in an instant. Job sat in the ashes, covered in sores, abandoned by friends who accused him, and a wife who told him to curse God and die. Yet Job held on. He questioned God, he wept, he wrestled with his suffering, but he never abandoned his faith. And in the end, God restored him, giving him twice as much as he had before. Job 42:10. Job's story is not just ancient history, it's a mirror for so many of us. Maybe you've been in a season where everything seemed to be stripped away. You've cried out to God, why me? Why this? Why now? But what if, like Job, your suffering is setting the stage for restoration? And then there's Joseph, a young man with dreams of greatness, yet betrayed by his own family. His brothers threw him into a pit, sold him as a slave, and left him for dead. If that wasn't enough, Joseph was later falsely accused and imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. Years passed, dreams faded, hope seemed lost, but God was working behind the scenes. What Joseph didn't see in the darkness of his prison cell was that every painful moment was positioning him for his destiny. One day, he stood as second in command over all of Egypt, holding the power to save millions from famine, including the very brothers who betrayed him. And instead of vengeance, Joseph declared these powerful words, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Genesis 50:20. How many times have you looked at your own suffering and thought it was meaningless? What if the very thing that hurt you was also the thing that prepared you? Like Joseph, you may not see the full picture now, but God is always working for your good. Even in the darkest seasons, you were never abandoned. You were being prepared. Hold on, your restoration is coming. And now look at your own life, the suffering you endured, the tears you shed. What if they were never wasted? There were nights when you cried yourself to sleep, days when you felt like a shadow of yourself, moments when you questioned if you were even worthy of love. But those tears did not fall in vain. They watered the future that God was preparing for you. Though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials, these have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. 1 Peter 1:6-7. The fire you walked through did not consume you, it refined you. The trial that was meant to break you only made you stronger, and now you stand not as a victim, but as a testimony of God's faithfulness. If you believe that God never allows suffering without purpose, hit the like button and help spread this message of hope to those who need it most. In the depths of your suffering, you may have thought, that relationship was a mistake. I wasted my time. I lost a part of myself. But what if I told you that you were never the victim? You were the lesson they never expected. You see, we often believe that we were placed in someone's life to love them, to build with them, to share something beautiful. But sometimes God does not send you into someone's life to be loved. He sends you to be the lesson that exposes what they are missing. C.S. once wrote, "Experience, the most brutal of teachers, but you learn, my God, do you learn." Perhaps you were never meant to stay in that relationship, but you were meant to teach them something they would never forget. A narcissist does not understand love in its purest form. They know control, they know manipulation, they know how to take, but they do not know how to give. Then you walked in, you with your kindness, you with your forgiving heart, you with your unwavering belief in love. You were different. You didn't play their games. You didn't enable their toxic ways. You showed them something rare, love without conditions. And what did they do? They took advantage of it. They drained your spirit. They tested your patience, but they did not realize one thing. You were never theirs to break. You were the revelation that exposed their emptiness. When the narcissist mistreated you, they weren't just rejecting love, as they were rejecting a reflection of what they could never be, and that terrified them. One day, whether they admit it or not, they will realize what they lost. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day they will see that they had something precious, and they destroyed it. They will remember the one who gave without expecting, who loved without conditions, who stood by them even when they did not deserve it. But by the time they realize it, you will be gone. And that is their loss, not yours. The Bible tells us in Matthew 7:6, "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." You were a pearl, yet they did not recognize your value. You were never meant to be wasted in their hands. They thought they were in control. They thought they could manipulate you forever. They thought you would never leave, but you did. And now you are free, free from their manipulation, free from their mind games, free from constantly trying to prove your worth to someone who was never capable of seeing it. They wanted you to believe you were weak, but if you were so weak, why did they have to work so hard to break you? They thought you would never leave, but If they were so powerful, why do they still feel your absence? They thought they won, but why do you walk in peace while they are left with nothing? One day, they will look back and realize that they will never find another you. But by then, you will have healed, you will have grown, and you will have moved on to something far greater than what they could ever offer. Have you ever felt like you were the lesson that God sent into someone's life? Share your story in the comments below. Let's encourage one another in faith and victory. You may have looked back at that relationship and thought it was a mistake. You may have blamed yourself, wondering if you should have seen the warning signs earlier, if you should have left sooner, if you should have been less forgiving, less kind, less trusting. But what if I told you you were never the victim, but the lesson they never expected? There are people in this world who do not know how to love, not because they are incapable of love, but because their hearts have been hardened by pride, selfishness, and control. Narcissists thrive on manipulation. They do not seek genuine connection, they seek dominance. They take, but they do not give. They consume, but they do not nourish. And then you walked into their life. You were different. You loved with sincerity. You forgave without keeping score. You gave not to control, but because love to you was meant to be a gift, not a weapon. You were the mirror they never wanted to face. Your presence forced them to confront something they had spent their entire life avoiding. What true, selfless, Christ-like love looks like. C.S. Lewis once said, "To love at all is to be vulnerable." But narcissists fear vulnerability. They fear real love because real love requires honesty, accountability, and selflessness. They could not handle your light, so they tried to extinguish it. But here's what they never realized. You were not the one who lost anything. They were. Narcissists believe they are the ones in control. They think they hold all the power. But here's the truth. They only had as much power as you allowed them to have. They assumed you would always be there, that you would always fight for them, that you would always accept less than what you deserved. They thought their manipulation could keep you bound, but one day you woke up. You realized that love is not supposed to hurt, that love does not require you to shrink yourself to make someone else feel powerful. You saw the truth and you walked away. And now they are left with nothing but the memory of what they could have had, if only they had been capable of receiving it. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. Matthew 7:6. You were never supposed to stay. You were meant to show them what they will never have again, and one day they will realize they lost something priceless, a heart that loved them unconditionally. But let me ask you, was it really your loss? Number. It was your lesson. Have you ever felt like you were the lesson God sent into someone's life? Have you seen someone realize too late that they lost something truly valuable? Share your story in the comments below. You were never the victim. You were the light they could not comprehend. The narcissist tried to control you through fear. They made you believe that without them, you were nothing. That if you walked away, you would crumble. That if you lost their approval, you lost your worth. But here's the truth they never wanted you to see. They were never in control. You were. Because the moment you stopped reacting, you won. For so long, they conditioned you to believe that their opinion of you defined your value. They manipulated your emotions, twisted reality, and made you feel like you were the problem. And you tried how you tried. You tried harder. You gave more. You endured longer than you ever should have. You bent over backward to prove your love, your loyalty, your worth. But nothing was ever enough. And that's when it hit you. It was never about you. It was never about what you lacked. It was never about what you could have done differently. It was about their inability to receive real love. That moment of realization, that was your first step toward victory. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Relying on God has to begin all over again every day as if nothing had yet been done." And that's exactly what you did. You stopped relying on the approval of a broken person and started relying on the one who created you. You let go of their validation and held on to God's truth. And that's when the chains fell off. When you walk away in peace, you win the battle. They never expected you to win. A narcissist thrives on your reaction. Your pain fuels their power. Every tear, every desperate attempt to make them understand, every argument, it all feeds their illusion of control. But the moment you stopped playing their game, their power crumbled. You didn't fight back. You walked away. You didn't beg for love. You reclaimed your worth. You didn't chase them. You ran toward peace. And that right there is a victory they never saw coming. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14, stillness, peace. Walking away without needing closure, without needing revenge, without needing them to understand. That is strength. That is power. That is freedom. You thought survival was the goal, but now you see that survival was just the beginning. You didn't just make it through. You came out stronger, wiser, freer than ever before. You won if you have walked away from a toxic relationship and reclaimed your peace. Leave a comment. I have won. We'd love to hear from you. Let's stand together in faith and victory. You are no longer a prisoner to their manipulation. You are free. You are victorious, and your best days are ahead. You did not just walk out of the storm, you emerged with a wisdom that no one can take from you. The pain you endured was not in vain. It was a teacher refining you, sharpening your discernment, and revealing truths that will guide you for the rest of your life. What the enemy meant for harm, God has used to give you clarity. The battle you fought was not just about surviving, it was about awakening. Before, you may have excused toxic behavior. You may have mistaken control for love, guilt for accountability, or silent treatment for a need to be pursued. But now your eyes are open. You no longer fall for words that contradict actions. You no longer accept apologies that come without change. You no longer tolerate cycles of deception. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 22:3. What once confused you now makes sense. What once entangled you now has no hold over you. The enemy lost his grip on you the moment you gained wisdom. You once thought that love required sacrifice, so you kept giving even when it cost you your peace. You believed that love required patience, so you waited, even when there was no change. You assumed that love required endurance, so you endured, even when your heart was breaking. But now you know the difference between love and control. Love does not make you shrink, it lifts you up. Love does not leave you questioning your worth, it affirms it. Love does not punish you for setting boundaries, it respects them. C.S. Lewis wrote, "To love at all is to be vulnerable." But vulnerability should never mean surrendering your dignity. True love reflects God's love, one that nurtures, strengthens, and honors the person you are. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. 1 Corinthians 13:4-5. Now you no longer chase love that requires you to diminish yourself. You stand firm, knowing that love should mirror the love of Christ, pure, patient, and without manipulation. The greatest lesson of all, you now understand that your worth is not determined by anyone but God. No rejection, can redefine you. No betrayal can erase your value. No loss can diminish who you are in Christ. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are ever before me. Isaiah 49:16. You were never meant to prove your worth to someone incapable of seeing it. You were never meant to beg for love that was conditional. You are chosen, set apart, and deeply loved by the one who created you. And now you live differently. You no longer need validation from the world. You walk in the confidence of your identity in Christ. What the enemy used to break you, God used to build you. You are no longer confused. You are clear. You are no longer seeking. You are found. You are no longer fighting for approval. You're resting in God's truth. You did not lose. You gained wisdom, and that wisdom will carry you forward into a life of freedom, strength, and purpose. You may have thought that God had abandoned you, that He had left you in the ashes of your suffering, but the truth is, He has been lifting you to a higher level all along. The fire you walked through was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you. You were never forsaken. You were being prepared. Pain did not weaken you. It made you a warrior. Every battle you faced, every tear you cried, every wound that scarred your soul, they did not weaken you. They forged you. You are no longer the person who begs for love that diminishes you. You are no longer the person who doubts your worth because of someone else's rejection. You are no longer the person who fears the fire because now you understand that the fire was the very thing that transformed you. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. James 1:2-3. God did not allow this season of suffering because He wanted to see you break. He allowed it so you could be built. You were not tested to be broken. You were tested to be strengthened. A soldier does not go into battle without training. A house does not stand without a strong foundation. And a warrior of faith is not made without fire. Think of every hero in the Bible: Moses, David, Esther, Paul. Each of them endured hardship before stepping into their God-ordained destiny. And you are no different. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading his people to freedom. David was hunted and betrayed before he wore the crown. Esther was placed in a palace, not for comfort, but for a battle she never saw coming. Paul was shipwrecked, beaten, imprisoned, but he carried the gospel further than anyone before him. They were tested because they had a purpose, and so do you. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. If you are still breathing, that means God's not finished with you yet. The enemy tried to convince you that your story was over, that you were too broken, too weary, too lost to ever recover. But listen, the fact that you are still here is proof that God is not done with you. Your best days are not behind you. Your greatest victories are still ahead. What was meant to break you will become the very thing that propels you forward. Being confident of this, that He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Philippians 1:6. You are stepping into a new season. A season of clarity. A season of purpose. A season where you will no longer question why you had to go through what you did, because you will see that every trial was leading you to this very moment. You are not just a survivor. You are a warrior. You are chosen. You are rising. If this message has helped you see your journey in a new light, share it with someone who needs encouragement today. You have walked through the fire, but you are emerging stronger than ever. God is not done with you. Your greatest chapter is still being written. You have walked through the fire, but you were not consumed. You have passed through the deep waters, but you were not drowned. What was meant to break you only made you stronger. What was designed to silence you only gave you a greater voice. The enemy thought your pain would destroy you, but God used it to prepare you. The narcissist believed they had control over you. They thought they had the final say in your story. But here's what they didn't realize. They were never the author of your destiny. They didn't ruin you. They simply became an instrument in God's hands to refine you. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." That's exactly what happened to you. You are not the same person who walked into that storm. You are wiser, you are stronger, you are free. And the best part? Your story is not over. The best is yet to come. So many times you wondered if you would ever feel whole again. You questioned whether you would ever rise above the pain, whether joy would ever return, whether you could truly heal. But hear me today. Your best days are not behind you. They are still ahead. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Isaiah 43:19. You are stepping into a new season. A season where you are no longer chained to your past, no longer carrying the weight of what was meant to destroy you. You are walking in freedom, in purpose, in the fullness of what God has for you. The narcissist thought they had the power to break you, but in reality, they only pushed you closer to the purpose God had already written for you. What they meant for harm, God has turned into your greatest transformation. If this message has spoken to your heart and you want more powerful content on faith and restoration, click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell right now. Your journey is just beginning. Walk boldly, knowing that God is leading you into something greater than you could ever imagine.